The Pittsburgh Steelers just won, finally beating the Indianapolis Colts 24-17 in a game that I think the Pittsburgh Steelers finally turned a corner. And we're going to talk about all of it on this 100th episode of The Huddle. Thank you, everybody, for being on this journey with me and subscribing and liking. We may not have always agreed, but here we are. With that being said, guys, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers, and welcome to The Huddle. Pittsburgh Steelers are back in the winning column, beating the Indianapolis Colts 24-17 in a game where I think the Steelers are starting to turn a corner, so to speak. You know, it's been frustrating. It's been a frustrating year. Offensively, the struggle's been frustrating. Defensively, it wasn't what we were expected this entire year. But finally, I feel like the Pittsburgh Steelers are finally coming around and showing some life. I mean, you know, up until this point, it's been, you know, there's been question mark about the heart of this team and the players and the coaching staff. And those are questions that weren't always there. And in my opinion, we're finally seeing this team play like a collective unit, like a team. You know, one of my biggest things and one of my biggest problems up to this point this year has been that the Pittsburgh Steelers have not played a full game. You know, you look at last week against the Bengals, they played in half, and then in the second half, they just went nowhere. You know, you're looking at multiple games this year where they come out, they look like they're on pace to maybe understand, finally get things clicking, and then it's like back to square one, and that wasn't the case this game. You know, and it was almost there. It was almost status quo in the third quarter when you saw the Pittsburgh Steelers 3-and-out, not able to do anything. And, you know, it was a quarter in which Kenny Pickett was 0 for 3. You know, I was like, man, you know, Najee Harris is out at this point because he has an oblique injury. I'm starting to get concerned. I'm starting to get worried. I'm starting to think that perhaps maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers are going back down that line again, so to speak. And they didn't. They turned it around in the fourth quarter. And for the first time in Kenny Pickett's young career, he won when, you know, he had his first come from behind win in the fourth quarter. Bravo, bravo. And, you know, this is, I think, like the third game in a row for the Pittsburgh Steelers that they did not throw an interception. You know, small but victories in its own, and that's what counts. You know, this is a team that's growing. It's a team that's building. You know, there was some frustrating things that we saw in this game, especially in that third quarter. You know, there was some plays that, in my opinion, were run back-to-back in sequential order that were the same play. And I don't know if you should be doing that in the NFL. You're going to get caught on to pretty soon when you have the quality of players that you're going up against. But let's talk some stats. Let's talk some of the game and some of the key plays and components of the game. Kenny Pickett was 20 for 28, 174 yards, 6.2 average. He was sacked 3 times for 23 yards. Dan Moore had himself a little bit better of a game, especially in the running, but he did let up a couple of times, which did end up with a couple of sacks. Kenny Pickett's rating was 87.5 to Matt Ryan, who was 22 of 34, 199 yards with a 5.9 average, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, which, wow, was that a catch by James Pierre. I mean, his ability to catch the ball in the air in that moment and still maintain possession while going to the ground, that was a fantastic play by him. Fantastic. It's unfortunate the Pittsburgh Steelers weren't able to do anything with that. But they set the tone early that this was going to be a long game and a long day for Matt Ryan and the Indianapolis Colts. Benny Snell was 12 carries for 62 yards, 5.2 average, 1 touchdown, 16 long. Najee Harris is 10 carries for 35, 3.5 average with a 1 touchdown as well. Kenny Pickett had 6 carries for 32 yards. Ant Mack had 6 carries for 30 yards. I think that offensively running the ball, this was another game that was another step in the right direction. You're looking at 172 yards collectively as an offense. And when you're starting to see this team, you're seeing Najee Harris break off some yards. You're seeing Benny Snell break off a game. You're seeing Jalen Warren have a game. What that leads me to believe or tells me is that this offensive line is starting to, become together. They're starting to build that chemistry. They're starting to gel together. They're starting to be a collective unit, working as one unit. Now, I had said this early on in this offseason that this was going to be an offense that might struggle in the beginning. There might be some growing pains because this offensive line was so new to each other. And there's so many new parts in this offensive line. I think the oldest person is like 25, 26 on the offense, much less on the offensive line. And, you had two first-time starters with the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mason Cole and James Daniel, who, when you look at an offensive line, that's a collective unit. They work as a team. They work as one. Regardless of the individual components of the group being potentially or obviously better than the pieces that were there last year, it was still going to take some time for this team to grow. And I think we're starting to see the product of that growth. You're seeing some games and you're seeing some rushing stats here that are honestly impressive. And it's complementary to the passing game that we're seeing from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Kenny Pickett's a rookie quarterback. Regardless of his skill, talent, and ability, there's no reason why he should be throwing over 30 times a game. Now, when you look at the losses that the Steelers have had with Kenny Pickett under the helm or under the center, the losses he threw over 30 times. In the wins, not saying that all the wins that he's had or the wins that he's had have only had 30 or less, but he's had 30 or less attempts. There was a time in Ben Roethlisberger's career that if he passed for over 30 or 35 times, the Pittsburgh Steelers' likelihood of winning significantly dropped. So to expect Kenny Pickett to throw the ball, regardless of his ability, his talent, his ability to read defenses, the whole 9 yards, to expect him to go and above and beyond and throw the ball for X amount of times is a little bit crazy, in my opinion. And so when you're seeing 20 of 28 and you're seeing a victory, I don't think that the 28 attempts and a victory are a coincidence. And I think if this team is going to want to win more games down the line, that's a stat that's going to have to be around there, 28, 29, 30 attempts. And you're going to want 100, 150, 175 yards rushing. And I'm not talking about by one player. I'm talking as a collective unit. When you have that, you have control, you have time of possession, you have, you control the trenches, you control both sides of the line, and you really control the game. And so it's complementary because then at that point you can start to put in some play action pass, things of that nature, and really spread out this team and get them thinking and playing honest. And that'll allow for a better average because you're going to get those extra yards that you normally wouldn't get when a team is kind of honing in on what you're doing. Let's look at the receiving. George Pickens was targeted 6 times, had 3 receptions for 57 yards along with 35. And what this stat won't talk about is the 2-point conversion, and that goes for both Kenny Pickett and George Pickens, which I thought, in my opinion, that 2-point conversion pass to give the Steelers a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter, as time is running low, I thought that was important. That was a throw that I would call an NFL throw. It was on the move. It was in a corner of the end zone where the windows are getting smaller, where the accuracy has to be more pinpoint. And he put the ball in a position where George had to go down for it, but that nobody else was going to get the ball. And he put it right there where he needed to, where George could still make a play and keep his feet in bounds or his knees in bounds because he went down to the ground. And I thought that was an NFL throw. That had characteristics of what I call the can't teach qualities. I thought that Kenny Pickett, and the stats will show it, he's done fantastic against the blitz. He had one beautiful pass down the field, the back shoulder to George Pickens, that I thought was also fantastic. And so he's starting to put it together. Is he a guy that's ever going to, be the take over a game like Josh Allen or Mahomes and force a defense to, play all corners of the field? Probably not. But this is a guy that has some anticipation. He's got the coolness under pressure and the ability to make decisions quickly when being pressured / and or blitzed. And he's been able to handle those things fairly well. And so he's got some components that the Steelers and some stuff that the Steelers can work on and build and make a prolific offense with. And so I'm becoming more excited. I know I haven't been I've been a little bit more critical of Kenny Pickett than most. I think that, I'm still thinking, and like I said, I don't think he'll ever be in that class of elite talent-wise quarterback where, can make those off-platform throws all over the field accurately and decisively and all that other stuff. I don't think he'll get there. But that doesn't mean that he can't be a guy or be a good quarterback. And I'm seeing that with him. And these are the things that I wanted to see. Because at this point, guys, I'll be honest with you. At this point, the Steelers are 4-7. Is there a chance that they can make the playoffs mathematically? Yeah. You look at the schedule, it's not the strongest or the most difficult of schedules. It's probably one of the more weaker ones going down the stretch compared to, like, for instance, the Cincinnati Bengals or the Cleveland Browns. They have a pretty daunting schedule. The Baltimore Ravens don't have the toughest of schedules, but they've also not performed, in my opinion, to their current schedule. I think that they've gotten a little bit lucky. The ball is bouncing their way in certain games, which has led to them having a few more victories than their talent on the field probably would make you believe by just watching the games and not looking at the score. And so, with that being said, is there a chance? Yeah, for sure there is. And I'm really hoping that the Pittsburgh Steelers go down that avenue and get into the playoffs. And, once you're in the dance, there's, any given Sunday, anything can happen. Realistically, I don't know. I mean, you have a young team, you have a young quarterback. What I'm looking for at this point is growth and development. Once the Steelers are 6-7, then we'll start talking about possibilities. But let's stack some wins first. But what I want to see more than anything was the development of this team. I wanted to see the team progress in the right direction. I wanted to see this team build and play a full game. Now, that third quarter was uninspiring and a quarter that I would say that the Steelers didn't play a full game in. But it was the next step in the right direction. Up next is the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta. And I think this is another game that the Pittsburgh Steelers can go in and take care of business. But before we go into that game, let's finish this one. So defensively, the Pittsburgh Steelers got to Matt Ryan 3 times. They intercepted him once. I felt that they kind of kept things under wraps. I mean, you're looking at Jonathan Taylor having 20 carries for 86 yards, 4.3 average, 1 touchdown. That's pretty average, so to speak. 4.3 yards. It's not bad. Matt Ryan had 4 carries. One was along of 14, which, my goodness, I think that play lasted like 45 seconds. But it is Matt Ryan running down there, so it is what it is. I was completely shocked that he made it 14 yards. I thought that the Steelers defense did well. If I'm giving some game balls in this game, I'm giving one to Alex Highsmith. I'd love to give one to James Pierre, but I believe he was the cornerback that allowed for the touchdown to Michael Pittman. And so, he did, and also the Steelers ended up not doing anything with the interception that he had, but it doesn't take away from the play that he had. It was a fantastic play. I think the Steelers did well defensively. I think in that third quarter, they kind of choked as well to a certain extent. They weren't aided by, the offense maintaining possession. The offense had some 3-and-outs, but the Steelers allowed the Colts to move down the field and put some points there in that third quarter. They ended up putting 14 points there and allowing them to come back and take the lead. And so, outside of that quarter, I think the Steelers, did a great job. Like I said, I'm going to give a game ball for sure to Alex Highsmith. On the offensive side, I'm giving a game ball to Benny Snell. He had 12 carries for 62 yards, 5.2 average, 1 touchdown. I'm giving a game ball to Kenny Pickett. I thought he did a fantastic job protecting the ball, not having any turnovers. Had some key throws and some key moments that were pro NFL throws, and I really like what I saw out of Kenny Pickett. And I'm also going to give one to George Pickens. He had a couple of drops in this game, a couple of passes that you want to see caught, but he also maintained the ball on a few others. He had a 35-yard pass that was a back shoulder pass that was beautiful. I just feel that this young man has a lot of talent. I'm a little bit concerned when it comes to the celebrations and the selfishness that's kind of coming along with him. He's a little bit of a prima donna, a little diva there that I'm hoping doesn't blow up, so to speak. But, I'm going to give him a game ball. And my last game ball in this game, this might be a surprise, is going to go to Matthew Wright, field goal kicker. He had 3 field goals with a 52-yard long, 1 extra point. I felt that Matt did a great job. I mean, I get that the kick coverage team didn't do the greatest. They allowed for quite a bit of returns. They had an 89-yard return. They had a 45-yard return. They ended up giving up 225 yards total on kick returns. I get it, but Wright was kicking them into the end zone. That wasn't his fault that the coverage team wasn't doing so well, which brings me to a question, and please answer this in the live chat. In the comment section, is how big is Miles Boykin to this team, and do we now have a little bit more respect for the players that are mainly special teams designated players? You're looking at your Miles Boykin, you're looking at your Benny Snell, your Killebrews of the world. Are we looking at these guys with better respect, knowing now that, hey, when you don't have those guys and you're just filling in bodies from on the side of the field, that is still very important how that aspect of the game can kill you. It's important, hopefully Miles Boykin comes back. You're looking at Benny Snell. He was playing a big portion of the offense, especially late in the second half of that game. Did that have a component to the kick return? Was Benny Snell not out there? Were they, holding him back due to the health concerns because he was, Najee Harris was out early due to an oblique issue, so they didn't want to get another running back injured. If not, just him playing more and having fatigue and playing more than he's used to also have an effect on his potential kick coverage. So those are all things that are possible. But it does give you a newfound respect for these guys that are going out there and covering the kicks and making sure that the opposing offense has a longer field to go. And so Matthew Wright ends up getting my game ball because of what he was able to do with getting points on the board. He accounted for 10 points tonight, 3 field goals and an extra point. That's good job. Good job. And with that being said, guys, I think that's going to be it for today. I want to thank everybody again. This was the 100th episode of The Huddle. Not the 100th episode that we've done here on State of the Steelers, just the 100th of The Huddle. And I want to thank everybody that's been a part of this journey. I want to thank everybody that subscribed and liked to this point. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And if you are, ring that notification bell. That way you're notified of all of our daily segments, weekly lives, and our special guest podcast. But with that being said, guys, the Pittsburgh Steelers win 24-17. They have a respectable game. One more game back towards respectability and back towards 500. I think this team can get there. I really do. With that being said, guys, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers.